Hello dear ones, thank you so much for clicking on this video and listening to me while I'll be talking about what you need to know from a spiritual standpoint of view. What matters to you spiritually in regard to the war that is happening right now in Ukraine. The first point is that we are a temple of God, and anybody is a temple of God who puts his God's name on their souls and seals their souls with God's name. And that temple is something very precious in God's eyes. And where I see that is firstly in 1 Kings chapter 8 verse 29, where it says that your eyes may be open toward this temple night and day, toward the place of which you said, my name shall be there, that you may hear the prayer which your servant makes toward this place. Some translations say in this place. So this is Solomon when he had just installed the very famous temple in Jerusalem. He's praying and consecrating the temple to God. Now, how does that relate to us as persons? It says in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 16 and 17, do you know that you are the temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? If anyone defiles the temple of God, God will destroy him. For the temple of God is holy, which temple you are. The consequence of the war is that people are getting killed for no good reason. Obviously, there's never a good reason to kill a person. And that is very much displeasing in God's eyes, and it's something that we as people, as humans, I'm not speaking now particularly to a Christian, I'm actually trying to speak to people in general. We need to be aware that a war is something bad, and I think most of us are actually very much aware of that and understand that. But as I said in the beginning of the video, I'm speaking from a spiritual point of view, and from the spiritual point of view even, it's something that's very displeasing to God, the fact that there is a war happening and that the temples of God, which we humans are being destroyed. And I appeal to everybody of us, because that's my personal belief, that we should seal ourselves, consecrate our body to God, and that will benefit us in the end, even if, let's say, the war catches up with us. So the second point I want to make is actually we're called to be wise, but in God's wisdom. And where I see that is in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 18, where it says, let no one deceive himself. If anyone among you seems to be wise in this age, let him become a fool, that he may become wise. We're being called to be fools. Now, in the particular time that we're living in, it's very difficult to know exactly what to do. What is it that I have to do, let's say, if a war is to break out? I can't answer that question. I think a lot of people are trying to attempt and trying to say, get your money out the bank, buy this, buy that. I think first, and that's the crucial step, is to become fools in this generation, to become fools for the things of the world, and try to really go inside, deep inside ourselves, and ask ourselves, what is it that God is calling me to do, which may seem foolish in this world? The next point that I want to make is that in this time of war, it's very important that we look after our communities, whoever that is, whether it's your family, your friends, your colleagues, your classmates, whatever community that you have. Call these people, ask them how they're doing, and make sure that you keep in touch. And where I see that is in 1 Kings chapter 9 verse 39, where it says, now as the king passed by, he, a prophet, cried out to the king and said, your servant went out into the midst of the battle, and there a man came over and brought a man to me and said, Guard this man. If by any means he is missing, your life shall be for his life, or else you shall pay a talent of silver. What this is pointing us to is that in the time of battle, God is placing us as lights of the world to be shielding, guarding, and protecting those that are next to us, because He has bestowed us with the godly capacity to be caring, to be loving, and to be gracious toward others. And the last thing that is quite pressing, because we don't know what's going to happen in half a year from now, in a year from now, and because we have just come out of a worldwide crisis in which nobody really imagined what was going to happen, and in which things change radically and drastically. So this I find in 1 Kings chapter 21 verse 3, and there it says, But Naboth said to Ahab, The Lord forbid that I should give the inheritance of my fathers to you. And this is referring to a situation which Ahab, which is the king of Israel at that time, it's a king. I mean, if you're not that familiar with the Bible, it doesn't matter. It's Ahab is really a king, and now this king wants a piece of land which is very desirable. It's a vegetable garden, and he wants to take that piece of land from Naboth and tells Naboth, I want your piece of land, whatever it costs. You just tell me the price, I'll pay to you, and then take that land, and you go and take the money. So Naboth says, the Lord forbid that I should give up my inheritance. And what's so important is that land actually connects us to our ancestors, but in itself it is a very important asset, a very valuable, very necessary asset to have. So what I'm trying to do myself, and I'm 26. By now I could have had already, some land, some valuables, let's say, but I haven't achieved that goal yet. But I'm working towards it, and I plead with you that you also consider either getting land or trying to stock up on food, whether it be oil, flour, I don't know, canned beans, canned vegetables, whatever it is. Prepare yourself for a time in which you will have to be autonomous and self-sufficient. So the best way is to have land, which you could even pass on if you're thinking about that, but which for yourself will be first a place of refuge. You're not renting from anybody, it's your land, and at the same time it may even help to take in others, to grow food with others, and become, at least to somewhat, to a certain degree, independent. I thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to your comments. If you have any questions, if there's any reference that I made that you didn't catch, let me know, and I will be more than willing to talk to you. Also, don't feel pressured to be a believer now. This is just my personal input into your life, which I want to leave to maybe alleviate fears, or also just give some food for thought. Thank you so much.